Lyrical Ones, episode 111. I am Cineo, joined, as ever, Alfluent. How are you doing?
Doing well. Ah, we out here, IG Live. Welcome everybody to episode 111, 111. It's a good time. I got Kleenex, not sponsored yet, but you know, large nose probably need a big sponsor.
I hear that. I hear that 100%.
At Kleenex, hit me up.
For real, for real. Hook it up. What you gonna, man? For all the
So,
seasons.
so if y'all don't know, this is an arm of Lyrical Opposition. We're a subsidiary, just a broadcasting arm of Lyrical Opposition, 501c3 collective. We thank y'all for being here. Cineo, let them know about Lyrical Opposition.
Lyrical Opposition is a nonprofit organization that uses the arts to give voice, to shed light, and to oppose the injustices that exist in the world through the scope of music, film, and pretty much every medium a person can be creative with. Lyrical Opposition supports artists and being able to refine or find their voice and how they want to show up and be active in the world in a healthy, sustainable, and restorative way. And one of the things that we've done, if people have seen the link in the story, is a documentary called Rantrification. We have a showing on the 28th. It is a Sunday. It is an opportunity to come and see what we've been able to create and produce, directed by Pico Navarro, who did an incredible job. Also shot, edited, director of photography, Des, La Capture Productions. And yeah, it's an overall community thing, but I really got to give credit to those two for really making it a movie. Like every time, like the impression of people who watch it and they're like, y'all did this, that speaks volumes, right? Even if it's a little backhanded, even if it's like trying to little bro us, like we get it because it's so many people who don't expect the level of quality and the overall like impact that this film has. And it's an honor to have people say that, like, y'all did this, like,
I'm trying to Nietzsche me. Don't Nietzsche me, it's Nissan.
come on. Where's the respect for the weaves out there?
But
But
of,
yeah, it's
but of course, we came on strong. Of course, Pico Navarro came on strong. Of course, La Capture came on strong. Of course, Cross Allen, Shannon Price Bustos came on strong. And, as a team, I think the reintrification documentary is important for their cohesiveness and their growth forward, where they see Lyrical Opposition, who in the past has been a collective focused very much on the stage and performing arts, the live performing arts. And now as we all move toward content creation and finding other ways to get our message across and lift up the artists, moving into, new decades, new phases, new seasons with Lyrical Opposition. I think reification is the kind of a beacon and, a flagship statement for what's coming.
Oh, definitely. And so for those watching, yes, comments are off, but you can message me directly. I am monitoring my DM, so you can definitely send me a message if you have questions or if there's something that you want our perspective on in terms of the topic. But more so, this is about a space for all who are witnessing, watching, participating. You're a lyrical one, right? We all have a voice, whether it's the means to write something down or just speak on something or share your thoughts or give your opinions.
Right.
It's a space for everyone to explore their lyrical sensibilities and their individuality. And so, Lyrical Ones is about building community, about having a safe space. We if we talk about toxicity, we talking about it from the scope of healing. We talk about it from the scope of repair. right? We not diving in for the sake of exploring it to exploit people's trauma and pain for entertainment in our way to like manage our insecurities without addressing our own issues.
Right.
So it's a transition period, right? We're on StreamYard for many 110 episodes. This is the 111th. And we're making the transition on this 111 for the lyrical
This
ones on
this the
IG.
interlude. This the
The
interlude.
interlude, definitely the interlude.
Man, I think about some of the classic albums with amazing interludes. I think about Jodeci. I think about Lil Wayne. I think about Ludacris. Some folks with great skits, great interludes. Any interludes stand out to you?
Honestly, immediately, the Chronic 2001.
Nice.
The interludes on that album added so much texture, layer, like the narrative focus. Like it felt like a movie. Like it begins on the THX like sound, you know, that hype up, that
Oh
rev.
yeah.
And it really takes you on this journey that's like it feels good, but it's so epic in its ability to like capture this almost motion picture quality. So the interludes, yeah, this is the interlude most definitely.
Didn't the THX like sound like I was already a fan of that sound to the point where whenever I would watch a movie, I'm like, I'm already invested, you know, on a sensory level. So when I heard that sound on the Chronic 2001, same way, I'm like invested on a sensory level. Like this is exactly what suits this album, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's the quality of content and production that I would expect from Dr. Dre, right? Not just him being a legend, but also in terms of this is an announcement, right? It's a statement to say, get ready exactly for that. Something we're putting together, a story that you will be able to see as you listen.
Oh, definitely. And people, pop on, pop off again. If you have any comments that you want to share, just DM me directly. We keeping the comments off for this one.
Yeah, this is the
Maybe
interlude.
for a few.
It's the
Maybe
interlude.
even when we get to the main tracks, we may just, you know what I'm saying? Like it depends. We'll see how it goes. But got to be mindful of the spaces we're in at all
Not
times.
not really though. I think if you want to be involved, you want to interact, message Cineo for sure, message the Lyrical Ones account. But also if you have artists in mind that you would love to see on this podcast, that you would like to lift up for us to showcase. If you got artists in mind uh, in your local area or around the world, really, we've had creatives and artists from different continents, which has been great in these last 110 episodes. And we really want to keep that energy, keep that vibe, and allow artists to come in and really talk about them. And we started during the pandemic where folks was at home, and the flurry of podcasts, has created a lot of interesting conversations. It's held space for a lot of vulnerability. It's allowed for people to dialogue when they don't disagree. And I think we want to continue to have that, as well as lift up the folks that are driving culture in society, driving change in society in the form of artistry and creativity. I feel like as things become new, society finds a way to see the artist, but it's the artist who is dreaming up something and giving their own interpretation of what's around them while also creating something that they may hope to see as mainstream or something that moves the needle, or creates a future that is not yet here. And then society finds a way to support and see their own vision, and sometimes it aligns with the artist, and sometimes the artist is just a spark, and society then, you know, creates, you know, some form of exchange that leads to support for the artist. And when businesses see that, right, they say, okay, we're gonna create some form of this. And sometimes those companies dilute the message or the medium as they co-op something and that's something that's already loud. They say we're gonna lift this up even more, but sometimes what happens with corporations, right? They dilute that message, and we don't want to dilute anything here. We want to get the artists raw and intentional and in their own words, in their own voice, you know, sharing to all of you. And we see everybody as lyrical ones because we all have a story, and everyone's, you know, lyrics are different.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I mean, speaking of lyrical differences, getting into it, this past week, there's been many conversations that I've had where people are continuing not just the transition, but also like the understanding of self, like in the transition, right? Like, you know, the mass exodus of people leaving their jobs, right? Or people transitioning into new works and new industries and learning who they are in those new spaces.
Right.
But also what it means to like maintain yourself,
Mm.
sustain yourself, find that balance. And, you know, it was interesting. I had a conversation with somebody and they was like, man, I never thought I'd leave them. And I was like, but you always knew you would. And they had to
Right.
sit with that for a second, right? Because it was like, yeah, it's hard for you to think, but deep down at the core, you know, right? There's this pillar that exists, right, of your core self, right? The who you are, who you're centered in. And then there's all the auxiliary things that exist outside yourself that have influence that sometimes you got to resist, sometimes you got to oppose, right? Pun intended. And what happens a lot of times is we confuse this outside self that has to exist within societal means, societal structures, within the confines and how they try to regulate what is with who we are at the core, right? And then, you know, I sarcastically be like, we was getting chased by bears. Like, we need to build a hut. We need to get in the cave, right? We trying to find a way to survive. And now we don't have that. Now we've
Mm.
paved roads, right? We've created structures that keep us safe and detached from what were those things that had us on, had our head on swivel, right?
Man.
And so we go into these situations with a certain level of tolerance because we associate like, oh, I need to endure this behavior, this conversation, these temperaments for my survival. When reality is, you so
Still got
much
a
more
swivel.
value. You still got a swivel, but you so much more valuable than what they paying you for, right? Like they paying you for you to be in a position or be in a situation that they can receive your time and your energy, right? When time is the most valuable resource to me because it's not renewable, right? It's the one thing that is exhausted and disposed of as soon as it's gone. Whereas the money comes and goes, right? People will be like, I can't leave because this is how much I'm getting paid now. And I'm like, but if you could take the cut to acquire skills that add on to the skills you already have, it could lead to another opportunity that's going to set you up even further, right? And a lot of times people are seeking freedom from that whole structure. So I feel like more, if you're getting paid to learn, sometimes you're not going to get paid as much. Sometimes you're going to get paid more. Being flexible, right? And understanding that the value of your core self is so much more paramount than them constantly hitting you over the head with, oh, we gonna give you a raise. We gonna promise change. We gonna lead you on, right? Like you get into a job with the expectation of this one thing, right?
Right.
And then they
That's their
turn around.
system. That's their parameters, right? It's like we're gonna show you appreciation by giving you a raise, right? But you got to have your own expectations, your own parameters for what growth is for you, right? It's like I'm gonna pay myself with learning always, right? I'm gonna pay myself with understanding always. If I come into a situation, right, where I'm getting paid minimum wage, right, my goal is to gather information, right, as I set the next thing up. Because, like you said, right, I always knew I was gonna leave, right, and that's whatever the pay scale is. because right, you can't pay me enough for my life, right? It's like, would I rather live or have $1 million? Right? Would I rather live or have $10 million? Right? Say, oh, well, you pay me $10 million and I die. Like, who I'm gonna give that money to?
And you know what's even more crazy about that specific comment is how people use that like almost irrational dream like oh, let me barter with myself, where my circumstances right now is I'm gonna associate this imaginary $10 with life or death,
Mm,
right?
yep.
When a lot of times you so far from the $10 million, right? That it's just the thought of it helps keep you in check to continue to like sustain the same crap you've been dealing with, right? It's like I'm gonna sit here, what I'm gonna do, right? I'm gonna get this $10 million, or am I gonna do X, Y, Z? And it's like if you look at it for what it's worth, right? Going back to the core self, that $10 million, what is the purpose of that? Right? Like what is the real purpose of that? Is it to just have it? Because if you just have it and you don't have the education or means of understanding on how to use it
It
properly,
it ain't no different than $100.
exactly, right? Ain't no different, right? People can get it and lose it. And so the thing is, we start to create these like these false goals, right? Where it's like, is it about your health, your mental health, your peace, your well-being? Is it about everything? A little bit of both, a little bit of everything. And instead it starts to become these like high stakes dream scenarios of life and death associated to this like crazy thing that's like we're near it. And it's not to minimize the want for it, it's to know that what's the purpose driving you to it if there is one. Because a lot of times we could just say, oh yeah, whatever, bro, you when you really come down to it, somebody gave you $10 million, blah 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 blah, so now you gonna rationalize in yourself, you know what, you're right, let me accept all this stuff that's happening to me that's traumatic and harmful because what you said made me think about an imaginary me that exists in another dimension.
Right. And that's the thing. You really have to, before that windfall comes, or right, that circumstance or that opportunity comes, you already have to have a mindset of what I'm gonna do when the opportunity comes. Because if you don't, right, it's a testament, it's a reflection of why you're in the situation you're in. Right. It's like if you're not prepared for the opportunity now, right, you when the opportunity comes, right, because the opportunity could be here tomorrow. If you're not prepared, right, you're not gonna know what to do with it.
No, I mean, I agree. It's like how I feel about lyrical opposition. Like lyrical opposition, I've known of for quite some time.
Right.
I wasn't always ready for the opportunity, like lyrical opportunity of being a part of lyrical opposition, right? It was like one of those things, like Figo especially. Figo's always like, bruh, you just come through. And it's like, all right, I do a little dance on stage. I'll do a little show. But then the level of commitment, involvement, reciprocation for what's being provided is like, I'm very careful because I know I'm not ready yet. But once I was ready, before I knew it, right, I'm sitting here with you, and it's like, oh, we go back or we know each other from different circumstances, and then you telling me things that I can't even believe. Like, lyrical opposition, we help people get about their situations.
Right.
I'm
So
like,
it's like we're not
who
here.
you to tell me?
Lyrical ops, right? We're not here to feed you, right? We're here to say this is how you get energy, right? And with that energy, right, you go ahead and run your purpose up.
No,
Go
for
ahead,
real.
go ahead and run it up. But like this is how you, right? This is how you source, right, what you need. Because what you're doing is not sourcing, giving you what you need, right?
Exactly.
And
Right.
a lot of times people won't acknowledge that they are being drained, right? They may find ways to re-energize, but what if what you did every day poured back into you, right? Then you would never be drained. You would wake up on vacation, right? You would be sustained by your vacation, right? And I don't mean like not working. I mean vacation from a job, right? To the point where you on vocation, right? And you doing it right with intentionality. And every time you wake up with a task on hand, it's not ominous, but it's that it re-energizing you, say, right, it's feeding you. But lyrical ops wasn't never meant to feed you. And right, we was like, come on, so that you could let go of that familiarity. And right, then you was like, oh well, gotta get my parachute ready. Right? Then you did that and then realized, wait, actually I could jump anyway.
For real. Like the parachute, like
It'll never be big
knowing,
enough.
no, exactly. It'll never be big enough. Like if it functions, if it functions, that's all it needs. That's all it takes. The function, right? Not how much we can romanticize how grand it could be. It works. Time to test it out, right? Time to test it out because a lot of times the leap, right, ain't as grand or as high as we think it is. It's just we get in our head because there's so many different things outside of us that are trying to get in our head. There's so many different people, there's so many different practices, cultures, there's so many different history,
Messages,
messages,
energies,
trauma, right? There's all these things.
distractions.
And the thing that I really want to be clear on, like reflecting on another conversation, is when we find ourselves in these situations, knowing what the pivot is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to define what the meaning is. There's people who are going to come to you and they're going to be like, this opportunity is for you. When in reality, you have to determine what is it about the opportunity that is for you, right? Because someone's
Yeah.
going to project what they want out of you, not what you need from them or not what you need from the moment, right? They're going to say, you know what? I like the way you do this. Come over here. But in your mind, you have to understand, as much as they like that, there's so many more qualities and things that you bring to the table that
Right.
when you get there, you may realize, yo, this is a mess, or this isn't what I thought it was. And then you have to then decipher, okay, what are the ways that I can pivot, that I can shift my perspective to then see what are the other things that I can gain out of the situation, right? It's not
Okay.
to sit there and level with the harm, not at all, right? It's not to
Nah.
say, oh, I'm taking this in and I'm gonna make the most of it. Sometimes it's just saying, okay, what are the things that I can actually attain or learn or receive in a way that may be not sustainable, maybe momentary, right? Maybe for a certain amount of time that then can set me up for another pivot. But having that ability to say, okay, I can pivot, right? You might find yourself at a venue because
Right.
they like, you're an artist. We love you. We love what you do. And they don't got it together. So then what do you do? Do you see this as a failed opportunity or do you see this as a time to build community with the other people who may be going through the same thing you're going through, right? Or just having the moment to say, you know what? I'm gonna reshift my focus from what I thought I was here for into exploring the other opportunities that exist within the space because they're there if I choose to see them, right? If
Right.
I'm going to be so caught up in myself and be like, oh, this didn't go the way I wanted it to, and this didn't work, and that didn't work, and then I forget that, oh, you came all the way out of your way to come to just see me, just to be around me. Let me take the time to build community. Let me take the time to say my piece and build with you because I'm getting so lost in the original intent, which I thought was for me to do this, right? When in reality, it's like, oh,
Watch this.
pivot.
Question, Senio. Now, before you did a lyrical ops show, how many times can you count where folks gave you the opportunity because they wanted to get more of what they already had, right? Where it came from a place of right greed, right, or them getting more of what, right, more power, more influence, and it wasn't necessarily about putting you on, but it was or giving you actually giving you something. It was it was more about what they wanted more of.
See, that's the thing, is like, hence the mask, right? One of the many reasons why the mask was a thing, right? It's about maintaining boundary, but it's also about like the uniform, right? The idea of when I work, this is who I am when I work. And when I'm not working, guess what? You have no real understanding of who I am, right? And what I'm saying by that is, especially in music and artistry and within the confines and the culture that we have, the tendency of what I experienced was there were more situations when people saw the value in me and how it will propel them
Mm.
over how do we come together as community to respect each other and value each other, even if it's not as equals, respecting the positions we play within the community, right? Like you as the chief, you as the medicine man, you as the caregiver, you as the gatherer, you as the hunter. We all work in coordination to sustain ourselves. And that adds value to the greater whole of the community. But what I found a lot of times was, oh, you want me to hunt, you want me to gather, and you want me to make the medicine, and you want me to leave, but you want to wear the hat of the chief. How that work, right? In lyrical opposition, it was like, oh wait, there's somebody who's the chief, there's someone who's the medicine person, right? There's someone who's the hunter, there's someone, and all I gotta do is go with the hunter to go hunt. Yo, right? I can do my thing in this way without it turning into a situation where I'm being co-opted for a array of things, right? It's more like I get to really dive in and explore all of these in different capacities because there's people who are already doing this role, that role, right? That are already holding the weight in these areas. Whereas other times it was like, I done had people like they wanted me to manage them so bad. And I'm like, I don't do that no more. That they willing to try and even elicit some type of like violent response. And I'm like, yo, like how you even think this gonna make sense? Right? It's like I'm I'm all up for love and peace, but let's get it right. Let's get it straight. Like, don't get it twisted.
Reciprocation is a possibility.
Reciprocation it happens on many levels, right? I love contact sports on a reciprocal basis, right? Don't get it twisted, right? I'm all about love and peace, compassion, and understanding. Your inferiority, your anger is coming from a place because you don't have any control over what's going on right now. Even though you do, even though you have absolute like hold of what's going on, you can't see it. You refuse to accept it, and you think that somehow my abilities is tied to your pretty much negligence of your own life or your
Why
own dreams.
why Figo send me the live of your video right now?
I mean, to be like
Figo,
that, you know what I'm saying?
Figo, I love you, brother. Shout out to Pico Navarro, the multi-talented artist, creative, who came to Lyrical Ops and got to be a hunter at times and be a gatherer at times. You got to be a chief at times and got to be a medicine person at times, be a shaman at times, and without pressure to fit into one thing and and really flourish in the opportunity to grow whatever talent he wanted to pursue. And just that humility to give so many different things a try while really finding where community fit for him and people that he didn't necessarily know or grow up with or have similar backgrounds to, and then really co-created the community that exists today, just by being himself and in all the facets of who he is. And for me, like, I really like conflict, right? So like you like contact sports, I like it's a sport to me, but it's never a game. And because it's always like, okay, where am I gonna grow from this? Right? Where is the level up? Right? Where are the experience points coming in? Right? How many different things can I do to gain more experience points? Right? What can I collect from this? But my reason for collection continues to be, what can I give away? Right? So like any opportunity there is to learn, right? My default idea with it is, okay, how am I gonna, right, give this back out? Right? How am I gonna distribute all of this stuff? And what I had to learn how to do was cook the recipe instead of just giving out the ingredients. And once I got into that patience of letting something sit with me for a while before I just, oh, like, it's, you take this, you take this, you take this, and that's how you do it. And they like, wait, but what do I do with these ingredients now? And finding that opportunity. I think, especially my time with Lyrical Ops, where I've had to wear many different hats. Um, like the history don't matter as much as the future. The history is important because the history is a foundation, but the history is still speaking to us all because the heart's the same. The reason for Lyrical Ops is still the same. It was never about us getting on. It was always about holding space, right? It was always about love and pushing away the status quo of, like, if you've been in the Bay for a little bit of time doing anything, you've seen the crabs in a bucket mentality in the nonprofit world, in the creative space, in the music space, in the commercial space. You see it everywhere. I mean, it shows up if you just look at Silicon Valley, right? That's not a knock on tech. That's a knock on Bay Area culture. Before there was tech, the Bay Area was like that. If you look at the history of San Francisco and how close the center of San Francisco used to be to where Chinatown is now, that's a result of that crabs in a bucket mentality, that there needs to be somebody under you for you to feel like you're doing well. And we always want to push that away and lift people up to be here with us so they can see the view. Because when they get up here and see the view, as a creative, they're gonna interpret it in a different, beautiful way, right? Just as beautiful, but a different way. And that is the point of art, right? Is that, oh, that's a sunset. How did you get yours to look like that? How did you get your sunset to sound like that? How did you get your sunset to feel like that? Well, I just listened, right? I just looked, right? I just felt. I just tasted. I just touched. And then you end up with all these different infinite variations, right, of an event shared by people in time, space. And we always get to come back to that, right, when we record it, right, or we recall it, or we chronicle it. And we always want to lift up those folks, those artists who are doing just that. And we hope everyone is along for the ride. We hope everyone is along for the ride as we get into episode 112. And, thank y'all for joining us this interlude.
No, definitely. As we proceed, something I want to touch on that you were talking about when it came to LO and the juxtaposition, right? What that opposition really looks like is it's rooted in love and even more respect, because there is something to be said about how these cultures, like these cultures, become vehicles to traffic trauma, right? It's like because I went through this trauma and I've benefited in this way, I'm now going to attribute that as a rite of passage and I'm putting it on you, right? I went through this horrible harm and I overcame it, and now I'm going to put it on you. And if you can't overcome it, then you just wasn't meant to be here, right? We're not going to look at how it's interwoven in the fabric of a nuance of healthy and unhealthy, right? And harmful and harmonious, right? We're just gonna dive in and say it's all or none. And it's like, no, is you explore the conversations, personalities, temperaments, and people within LO, you start to realize everyone's on the wavelength of challenging that notion of a new culture, right? Of redefining what the culture can be, innovating, growing, evolving what the culture can look like, right? Because in the Bay Area, it's one aspect of the crabs in a bucket, right? Like, they promise you to come out here and get gold, but the one who's making the money is the one who's selling the actual pickaxe, right? Like, everybody, we gonna get the gold, the one who making the money is the one who's selling the tools and the dream. Yeah, come out here. I'm gonna put the message out there. I'm gonna send that messaging out there. Yeah, you gonna get rich, because what you really gonna do? I'm not out here getting gold, but you can get gold, and you know how? By buying my tools, right? Same thing. Tech company. You want to be in tech? You want to be in tech? We gonna sit there and we gonna put you in position, right? We gonna work you for it, right? And then you're gonna get acclimated to a system of culture in a way because I'm projecting that what's harmful to me and has prompted me up to be in this position, I'm now going to impose on you. But in LO, the idea is let's have ideas that exceed that go beyond that explore what's after that, right? Because it does not have to be that way. It does not have to be in that vein, right? And it's the conversations that we have here, and it's the conversations we have after and prior and throughout the week with our community to explore where are we at, how are we feeling, right? Those check-ins, those essential moments of real intervention, right? Like I got a friend who was like so narrowly focused on accomplishing the day to day that they weren't realizing how much they need to step back and include in that process their community, right? Like making time for the community. Not saying, oh, I got it. Not saying I'm gonna be all right. Not saying I'm gonna take it on, but saying, I need to check in. Because as I notice they say things on social media, I'm not gonna respond on social media. I'm gonna call you direct. I'm gonna hit you directly, right? Because you're doing this because it's available, it's accessible, it's been presented and manifested in a way where it's now integrated in your thought process where you're not thinking twice about it. But what did you not do? You didn't think about, let me go and just hit up the person I need to hit up directly. Or let me take a chance and just try out hitting up this other person. I know their sensibilities. I know that they're gonna receive me, but for whatever reason, I'm stuck in the monotony train of the hype of what I got to do in this culture of always on and always pushing and always hustling. And I'm not thinking about taking the time to go direct to my community or direct to the person that I need to. But you know me, I'm hard headed. I'm gonna find a way. You say you think I'm not gonna notice. You know how many people they be like, they just
Man,
letting it out and they
the
saying it. And
energy.
I'm like, I'm directly to you. Like, yo, what's good? What's happening? What is it? Because it's not enough for you to just say it and have people like it. What's happening? How are you really doing? How are you feeling? Because it does matter. It does mean it has value. I appreciate you, right? All those terms have monetary associations. And we flip the script over in here where it's like, we know money is important, but what's more important than that is you, right? And that's something that you don't have to do. You don't have to say that or reflect on it, right? The truth can be uncomfortable, but at least we can enjoy that together, right? We can explore that together. We can have that and own that together in community.
Senio, I get along with everybody in the community, but I am for certain that I can pinpoint that I know for sure exactly where we disagree on things. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate more than anything about LO is that like we don't have to agree to be on the same page. We don't have to be on the same page to have right similar goals. And we don't have to have similar goals, right, to respect each other. And it's it's really a time of enrichment anytime we get to gather. And it's hard sometimes to have conflict and abrasiveness and friction of ideas and emotions. But if if the point is love, right, then you find a way to come back to a baseline of you are important, right? Not because of what you can do for me, but just because, right, you're you. And I think that's been a great thing to see, but I hope that, right, spreads. I hope that spreads all over the place. I think you made a great point that it's not always about right your skill sets. if someone, right, can't find a way to communicate, right, their hurt, or, right, the disconnection, it's got to be on somebody to navigate the reconciliation, right, the rejuvenation, the healing, right. It's just like in the body, right, when you're not eating, your body's doing one thing and it has active enzymes and proteins. And then when you are eating, it has different proteins and enzymes that are doing different things. And like, and when everything's cool, somebody's got to be the person that keeps things growing, right? And then when things are not cool, it's got to be somebody that keeps things repairing. And you don't always know where you're gonna, right, what role you're gonna be in. And sometimes you may not even be the person that sees the need, and that's all right too. But the more you learn about yourself, right, the more you get to acknowledge at least what you need. And if you can acknowledge what you need, right, you can encourage and create a safe space for other people to share what they need.
Definitely. And I mean, it's not something that is exclusive to LO. It's more so to be mindful
That's right.
in all of our individual lives, our own journeys. How do we implement that and keep that central? Because it is easy to get caught up in the conundrum of what's available, what's accessible, what's pervasive, right? It's like there's the core self, and then there's this, right? We're on Instagram, but again, as the content is being created, right, they are curating an experience as you curate it for yourself, right?
Right.
They literally are curating exactly what you want and what you want to see, and you are too. It's an engagement practice where now the relationship that's being reciprocated and that's being like manifested, being created, is one where the other end of it, right, is just this ongoing mathematical equation that has no direct correlation to empathy, right? It has no direct correlation to healing, to what is your wellness. It's about keeping you on, right? You go to work and they try to disassociate anything that has to do with healing, anything that has to do with you having a space for safety, a space for growth. And then they tie it to your yearly improvement metrics, right? And they tie it to all these really unfortunate, like, wording, messaging, communication structures that are super outdated,
And
right?
some
That
of it
come
is
from
violent.
violent, destructive, harmful, violent.
Violent.
It's violent. Okay, and it's like, yeah, when you start to break it down and look at it, it's like, okay, if that's the case, what am I doing to intervene and change that for myself so I can sustain myself, so I can grow myself? Because we all got the thing that we got to work on, right? Like we all got it, right?
Yeah.
And when we have community who's engaged and can either push us, right, or just give us a place to like withdraw from it all, it's important. It's important, right? Because it's like I just had a week of various conversations from different angles where I could tell just as much as I'm feeding, I'm being fed,
Mm.
right? In so many different ways, right? I might be in my head and I may be doubtful. I may get consumed with all these thoughts. And then someone seeks just a moment of my time to like be like, yo, this is what I'm feeling. I'm like, I'm brought back to life, right?
Yeah.
I'm being pulled on, I'm called to service, and it gives me something just as much as they just need someone to vent to,
Right.
right? It's reciprocal, right? And
Right.
that's the community. And it's not something that it's not housed under any one umbrella. It's what you actually take the time to cultivate, what you take the time to grow
Yeah.
and
Sometimes,
maintain.
sometimes that community is of one. Right. Sometimes you got to be your own community as you, right, acknowledge where you need to grow, as you spend time and invest in yourself. Right. Sometimes you got to be your own garden and grow that to produce fruit. And sometimes you got to decide what success and what growth and what that fruit looks like to you without judgment from anybody else to say it's beautiful or that it's of value or that it tastes good. Right. Sometimes you got to say, this is good because I like it. This is good because it serves me. It's good because it gives me energy. Not because somebody on the podcast or on IG Live, somebody, not because somebody with a heart on their head or somebody with glasses told me this is where I gotta be, or these are the people I have to know. Sometimes you gotta say, these are the people that are important to me, or this is the space that I'm currently invested in, and I want to make sure that the people around me are also invested in a similar fashion. And you call yourself higher, you call them higher, and they do the same thing in return. And sometimes you challenge each other to look within to find what is most important. And what's most important can change season by season, week by week, moment by moment. And sometimes, just like you said, you have conversations where it's like a week of conversations, even where like people are pouring back into you. And instead of being an empty vessel where you're just pouring out to the people that you're invested in, right, you get refilled, right, to continue instead of being on empty. So,
Oh, definitely.
when are we back? So this is the interlude, right? This is 111. This is episode 111, Lyrical Ones. We switched over to IG Live. When are we back here?
So every Wednesday,
All
right?
right, cool.
Every
So
Wednesday.
we might not have the time down, but we gonna be back on Wednesday for sure.
Most definitely. It's sliding. You know what I'm saying? We got to stay flexible. You got to pivot. You know what I'm saying? The world, it sometimes has its cosmic moments, and we got to respond as cosmic entities.
Solar flares.
Exactly. You don't know when it's going to strike, but when it do, you know, we're going to be ready. And so with that, we know Wednesdays is the station. That's where it's at. It's stationed there on Wednesday. Okay. But as far as the cosmic energy that happens fluctuating on Wednesday, again, we're gonna be here. We're gonna be here. And you know,
Right.
it's a space for everyone to explore their lyrical sensibilities and be a lyrical one themselves. You know, we've had many interviews. You can check Spotify, you can see the people that we've interviewed, and we just had a recent interview with Cheryl from Google, who researches AI, and it was so powerful, so uplifting, so magnetic, and there's so much more coming from that, which is why all these interludes are necessary, right? Because we got to keep the song going, and that's what Lyrical Ones do. We are creating these epilogue of music, this catalog of nourishing, just music that you can appreciate through the verbal vocal tones of what we produce and provide. And so, yeah, Lyrical Ones, 111.
Someone I always appreciated when it came through in the intro is Diddy.
I mean, come on. You know
But
what I'm saying? He
so
gonna add that sauce to it, that flavor.
so Tom Cruise and Diddy, right, got the same energy for themselves. Like, Diddy feel a certain way about himself, Tom Cruise feel a certain way about himself. And that's all I got to say about that. And we can move on to next week.
Alfluent, do you have any final thoughts or words for the people of episode 111 of Lyrical Ones?
All right, so 11 used to be an important number. Now all the numbers are important. And I think I want to say that your perspective is valid to the point that it doesn't harm people. When your perspective starts to harm people, you got to check in and look at yourself and say, is my humanity being affected by me holding right, by me standing my ground, or standing on this, dying on this hill? And that's an idiom in America that's pretty morbid and comes from war culture. But really means is, right, is it worth my humanity to hold on to this way of thinking rather than grow and find out how I can change for the betterment of the people around me and even for myself? That's all I got to say.
I feel you. I feel you. I mean, yeah, dying on the hill. Sometimes it's battle, and sometimes it's just a flood, and that flood can be dealt with if you just know how to just unplug.
Dang, man, I stayed on this hill so long. It's flooding around me.
Better learn how to swim. Better learn how to float. Better get on your back. Better figure it out.
Man,
Backstroke.
waves always coming. Better learn to surf.
For real, for real. With that being said, as we often do at this time, because we can still do this.
Thanks, IG Live. We got the comments off today. Send us messages. Send us the DMs. Lyrical One. Cincinio Alphagoid. Keep it hotter than July. I really like that you kept that part in there. That was nice. That makes it an official remix. Thank y'all for watching. Thanks for staying with us.